The night settles slowly over a quiet stretch of land. There is no sudden darkness. No sharp ending to the day. The light simply fades, little by little, as if the sky itself is growing tired. The colors soften first, then dim, then quietly disappear. A faint orange glow rests low on the horizon for a while. It lingers there, almost unwilling to leave. But even that gentle light eventually slips away, leaving behind a wide, open darkness. Inside a small wooden home, a single flame flickers. It is not strong light. It does not fill the room. It only touches the nearest surfaces, the edge of a table, the curve of a chair, the lines in the wooden floor. Everything else remains soft and shadowed. This is how evening feels in a time before electricity. There are no switches to turn. No sudden brightness. No distant hum of power lines or quiet machines. Only the living light of fire, moving slightly, breathing in its own quiet way. The room is still. A person sits nearby, not doing very much. Maybe resting after a long day. Maybe simply watching the flame without thinking too deeply. There is no need to rush into anything else. Night has its own pace. Outside, the world grows quieter. The last birds settle into their resting places. Their calls become softer, then stop. The wind moves gently through trees, brushing leaves together in a low, steady sound. Far away, there might be the faint call of an animal. Or the slow movement of something unseen in the dark. But even these sounds feel distant, softened by the wide open night. Inside the home, the air holds the scent of wood and smoke. The fire in the hearth has burned low, but it has not gone out. Small red embers glow beneath the ash, steady and warm. They give off just enough heat to keep the chill away. That warmth matters. Because once the sun is gone, the air cools quickly. The walls of the house, built from wood or stone, do not hold heat for long. Blankets are pulled closer. Shoulders relax near the fire. There is no hidden system to keep the house warm. No steady, invisible flow of heat. Only the fire. And the care it requires. Someone might rise slowly, step across the wooden floor, and add another piece of wood to the hearth. The sound is soft. A gentle shift. A quiet crackle as the flame grows a little stronger. Then everything settles again. Time moves differently here. There is no clock glowing in the corner. No numbers quietly counting each passing second. Instead, time is felt in small ways. In the fading of light. In the slowing of movement. In the natural rhythm of the body growing tired. Eyes grow heavier. Not because of long hours under bright lights, but because darkness itself invites rest. People sleep earlier in this world. Not always at the same moment, but generally with the night. When the light is gone, there is little reason to remain awake for long. Firelight is precious, and it is not meant to be used endlessly. So the day ends gently. No sharp endings. No sudden silence. Just a slow drifting into rest. And then, after some hours, something begins to change. It is not loud. Not sudden. Just a slight shift in the air. The darkness softens, almost too gently to notice at first. The sky begins to lift from black to a very deep gray. It happens quietly, without drawing attention to itself. This is the beginning of morning. Before the sun rises, before the light reaches the ground, there is this in-between moment. A stillness that feels calm and open. The world holds its breath for a while. Then, slowly, the first sounds return. A bird calls out once. Then another answers from a distance. The sounds are not sharp. They are soft and spaced apart, like small signals that the night is ending. Inside the home, there is movement again. Not rushed. Not forced. Just a quiet waking. A shift beneath blankets. A slow stretch. The feeling of cool air on skin where warmth had been held through the night. The fire in the hearth is no longer aflame. Only embers remain. But they are enough. A person kneels close, careful and patient. A small piece of dry wood is placed on top. Then another. A gentle breath is blown across the ash, not too strong, not too fast. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, slowly, a faint glow brightens. A thin line of smoke rises. A small flame appears, almost unsure of itself. But with a little more care, it grows. This is how the day begins. Not with light from above, but with light made by hand. Outside, the sky continues to change. Gray becomes pale blue. The horizon brightens. Shapes that were once hidden in darkness begin to return: trees, fences, paths, fields. The world does not appear all at once. It reveals itself slowly. And with that slow return of light, the day quietly opens again. There is work to be done. Not urgent work. Not hurried work. But steady work. The kind that fills the hours without noise. A door opens with a soft creak. Cool morning air moves inside. It carries with it the scent of earth, of grass, of distant water. A person steps outside. The ground may be damp. The air may feel cold against the skin. But this is expected. This is part of the rhythm. There is no thought of changing it. Only the simple act of moving through it. The land stretches outward, calm and unchanged. A narrow path leads away from the house. It has been walked many times before. Its shape is familiar, its surface worn smooth by years of footsteps. Nearby, there may be a well. Water must be brought in before anything else. A bucket is lifted. A rope is lowered. The sound of water far below echoes softly upward. Then the slow, steady pull begins. It takes time. There is no shortcut. Each movement is part of the task. Each moment is felt. When the bucket reaches the top, it is heavy. Not too heavy, but enough to remind the body of its effort. The walk back is careful. Water shifts gently with each step. The surface trembles but does not spill. Inside the home, the water is set down. It will be used throughout the day, for cooking, for washing, for simple needs. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is taken for granted. Because everything requires effort. And so the morning continues. Light grows stronger. The fire burns steadily now. And the quiet rhythm of life before electricity moves forward, just as it always has, calm, unbroken, and slow. The morning settles in slowly, without any clear beginning or end. The light, which first arrived as a faint gray, now spreads gently across the land. It touches the tops of trees first, then the open fields, and finally the walls of the small wooden home. Nothing is rushed. The brightness grows in a quiet and steady way. Inside, the fire has found its rhythm. The flames are no longer small or uncertain. They move with a calm confidence now, rising and falling in soft patterns. The warmth fills the nearby space, reaching outward just enough to take the chill from the air. A simple meal begins to take shape. There is no hurry in preparation. Each step follows the other in a natural order. A pot is placed over the fire. Water, carried earlier, is poured in. Perhaps a handful of grain is added, or something saved from the day before. The sounds are soft and familiar. The faint bubbling of water. The quiet movement of a wooden spoon. The gentle shifting of firewood as it settles beneath the flame. Nothing feels loud. Nothing feels sharp. Even the smallest sounds seem to belong, as if they have always been part of the morning. Outside, the land is fully awake now. The sun has risen above the horizon, though it is still low in the sky. Its light is warm but not yet strong. Shadows stretch long across the ground, thin and quiet. There is movement in the distance. Someone walking along a path. A slow and steady pace, unbroken. Perhaps carrying tools, or heading toward a field that waits patiently for the day's work. There are no sudden starts. No loud signals. Work begins because the day has begun. That is enough. Back inside the home, the meal is ready. It is simple. It is warm. It is enough. There is no excess, no decoration. Just the quiet comfort of something prepared with care. Eating is not rushed. There is time to sit. Time to pause. Time to simply be still for a while before the work of the day continues. The light from the doorway shifts slightly as the sun rises higher. It moves across the floor in a slow, steady line, marking time in a way that feels natural and unforced. There is no need to measure the hour. The movement of light is enough to understand where the day stands. After the meal, the work begins again. Tools are gathered. Each one has its place. Each one has been used many times before. There is a quiet familiarity in the way they are held, in the way they are carried. Nothing is new. And yet, nothing feels worn out. Because these tools are cared for. They are part of daily life, just as much as the fire, the water, and the rising sun. Outside, the air has begun to warm. The cool edge of morning fades, replaced by a softer, gentler warmth. The ground begins to dry where the night had left its trace of moisture. Work in the fields moves at a steady pace. There is no need to rush forward. The day is long. The sun will remain for many hours. So the work follows a rhythm that matches the body, not the clock. A step forward. A movement of the hands. A pause. Then another step. The sounds of this work are quiet but constant. The soft press of feet against soil. The gentle scrape of tools. The occasional rustle of leaves moving in the breeze. There are no engines. No sudden bursts of noise. Only the steady presence of effort. And in that steadiness, there is a kind of calm. Time continues to pass, though it does not feel like it is passing quickly. The sun climbs higher. The shadows shorten. The light becomes stronger, but still not harsh. It simply fills the space more fully, leaving fewer places for shadow to rest. From time to time, there is a pause. Not a full stop, but a small break in movement. A moment to stand still. To look out across the land. To feel the warmth of the sun without thinking about anything else. These pauses are not planned. They happen naturally. The body understands when it needs them. And so they are taken, without question. Nearby, there may be others working as well. Not close enough to speak easily, but close enough to know they are there. A shared rhythm exists, even without words. Each person moving through the day in their own quiet way. As the morning moves toward midday, the light becomes fuller. The sky, now a clear and open blue, stretches wide above everything. There are no wires crossing it. No distant towers. Nothing interrupts the view. Just sky, and the slow movement of the sun. Back at the home, the fire has settled again. It burns lower now, not needing to be as strong as it was in the early morning. Its purpose shifts throughout the day. Sometimes it is for warmth. Sometimes for cooking. Sometimes simply to be there, a steady and reliable presence. The house itself remains quiet. There is no background noise. No constant hum. Only the occasional sound of wood gently adjusting, or the faint echo of footsteps on the floor. Light enters through small openings. Windows, if present, are simple. They allow light, but not in great abundance. The inside of the home remains softly lit, even during the brightest part of the day. Shadows still exist here, though they are lighter now. They rest in corners, along walls, beneath tables. They are not sharp. They do not stand out. They simply exist, as a natural part of the space. And so the morning continues to unfold. Not in large moments, but in small ones. One after another. Each one quiet. Each one steady. Each one part of a life that moves without electricity, guided only by light, by effort, and by time that flows gently, without interruption. The day has not reached its peak yet. But it is slowly moving there. And everything, the land, the home, the people, moves with it, in the same calm and unbroken rhythm. The sun continues its slow climb, reaching a place high above the land. By now, the softness of early morning has faded. The light is fuller, stronger, but still gentle in its own quiet way. It does not rush across the sky. It simply settles there, steady and present. Shadows grow shorter. Where they once stretched long and thin across the ground, they now rest closer to the things that cast them. Trees hold their shadows near their trunks. Fences draw small, neat lines along the earth. The air feels warmer. Not heavy, not overwhelming, but enough to be noticed. The coolness of morning has fully lifted. The body adjusts without thinking. Movements become a little slower, a little more measured. Work continues, but with a slightly softer pace. There is no pressure to hurry. There is no voice calling out for speed. Only the quiet understanding that the day will unfold as it always does. In the fields, the rhythm remains steady. Hands move through familiar motions. Soil is turned, plants are tended, tools are lifted and set down again. Each action follows the last without interruption, like a pattern that has been repeated many times before. The sounds remain soft. A tool brushing against the ground. The faint shift of clothing with movement. The quiet breath of effort, steady and calm. Even in the warmth, there is no harshness. The breeze still moves gently through the open space. It carries with it the scent of earth, of growing things, of distant trees warmed by the sun. From time to time, a person pauses. Not because the work demands it, but because the body asks for it in a quiet and natural way. A hand rests on the handle of a tool. Eyes lift toward the horizon. There is no need to think about anything in particular. Just a moment of stillness, held within the wider movement of the day. Nearby, the faint sound of insects begins to rise. It is not loud. Just a soft, steady presence in the air. A reminder that the world is full of small, living things, all moving in their own quiet ways. Back at the home, the inside remains cool compared to the outside. The thick wooden walls hold the shade. Light enters gently, never too strong. The air feels still, calm, and slightly dim. The fire has burned lower again. It rests now as a bed of warm coals, no longer needed for the moment. Its presence is quiet, almost unnoticed, but it remains ready. Everything in the home feels at rest. There is no movement unless it is needed. No sound unless it comes naturally. Objects remain where they were last placed. Nothing shifts on its own. Nothing hums or vibrates. The stillness is complete, but not empty. It is a comfortable stillness. Outside, the sun has reached its highest point. This is the middle of the day. There is no bell to mark it. No signal to announce it. But it is understood. The light is at its fullest. The warmth has settled evenly across the land. The shadows are at their shortest. This is the moment when work slows. Not entirely, but enough to allow for rest. People return from the fields, or pause where they are. The body begins to feel the steady effort of the morning. Muscles grow slightly tired. Movements become less urgent. A simple meal is prepared again. Perhaps bread that was made earlier. Perhaps something warm from the fire, brought back to life with a small flame. There is no need for variety. Only enough to restore energy, to continue the day. Eating happens in quiet. There may be a few words spoken, but they are soft, unhurried. There is no rush to finish. No need to move on quickly. Time feels wider here. Moments stretch gently, without pressure. After the meal, there is often a longer pause. A place in the day where movement slows even more. Someone may sit just outside the home, in the shade. The ground is warm, but not hot. The air moves slowly, carrying a steady, comfortable warmth. Eyes may close for a short while. Not fully asleep, but resting. Listening to the quiet sounds of the world. The distant call of a bird. The soft movement of leaves. The faint hum of insects continuing their steady song. This pause is not wasted time. It is part of the rhythm. Part of the balance between effort and rest. And so it is taken without question. As the sun begins its slow descent, something shifts again. It is subtle at first. The light softens just slightly. The warmth begins to ease, though it is still present. Shadows start to lengthen once more, slowly reaching outward across the ground. Work begins again, but with a different feeling. The intensity of midday has passed. The body feels a quiet return of energy. Movements become a little more fluid, a little less heavy. There is still much of the day left. But it is understood that it will not last forever. This understanding is always present. Because light is limited. It cannot be extended. It cannot be replaced. So the remaining hours are used carefully, but without urgency. There is a calm awareness of time, shaped not by numbers, but by the position of the sun. In the fields, the work continues in the same steady pattern. Nothing has changed in the method. Only the feeling of the day has shifted. The air carries a softer tone now. The brightness is less direct. The world feels like it is slowly preparing to rest again. Back at the home, small preparations begin. Not all at once. Not in a rush. Just a gradual turning toward the evening. The fire may be stirred again. A small flame brought back to life. Water checked, tools returned to their places, simple tasks completed before the light fades. Everything happens in a quiet, natural order. Nothing forced. Nothing hurried. And as the sun lowers further, the day gently begins to close. Not suddenly. Not all at once. But in the same slow and steady way it began. The rhythm continues, unbroken, carrying everything forward, into the calm and quiet approach of evening once again. The afternoon drifts gently toward evening, almost without being noticed. The sun, which once stood high and steady above, now begins its slow descent. Its light softens, losing the fullness of midday and taking on a warmer tone. The brightness no longer feels strong. It feels calm, and a little distant. Shadows begin to stretch again. They lengthen slowly across the ground, reaching farther with each passing moment. Fences cast long lines that cross the earth. Trees extend their shade outward, creating cool, quiet spaces beneath their branches. The air changes too. The warmth of midday eases, replaced by something softer. A light breeze may move through the fields, carrying with it the scent of dry grass and sun-warmed soil. It brushes gently against the skin, not cold, not warm, just present. Work continues, but it feels different now. There is a quiet awareness that the day is moving toward its end. Movements remain steady, but they are guided by a soft sense of closing, of finishing what can be finished before the light fades. There is no urgency. Only a calm understanding. Tools move through their final tasks of the day. Hands repeat familiar motions, not rushed, not forced. Each action feels measured, as if it naturally knows where it belongs in the flow of time. In the distance, others begin to make their way back. Figures appear along narrow paths, small against the wide open land. Their pace is unhurried. There is no need to arrive quickly. The day has already given what it could. The sky begins to change color again. The blue softens. A gentle warmth spreads near the horizon. Pale gold, light orange, quiet shades that blend into one another without clear edges. The land reflects this change. Everything seems to slow. Even the sounds become softer. The steady hum of insects begins to shift. The calls of birds return, but in a different tone than the morning. These are the sounds of settling, of returning, of preparing for rest. Back at the home, small signs of evening appear. The door may open again, footsteps returning across the worn ground. Tools are set down in their places. Nothing is thrown or dropped. Each movement is careful, familiar. Inside, the space remains dim compared to the outside. The fading light enters gently, touching the walls, the floor, the simple objects that have remained still throughout the day. It does not stay long. The fire is brought back to life once more. Not in a hurry. A piece of wood is placed carefully. Then another. A soft breath encourages the flame to rise again. It grows slowly, just enough to provide light and warmth for the coming night. This act is repeated every day. It is never rushed. It is never forgotten. Because the fire is central to everything that follows. A meal begins to form again. Simple, as always. Ingredients are gathered, prepared with quiet hands. There is no noise beyond what is needed. The sound of cutting, of stirring, of placing something over the flame. The smells begin to fill the space. Warm, familiar, steady. Nothing sharp. Nothing overwhelming. Just the gentle presence of food being made. Outside, the light continues to fade. The sun lowers further, nearing the edge of the land. Its glow becomes deeper now, more golden, more calm. It does not shine brightly anymore. It rests. The sky above begins to dim. Blue turns to gray again, slowly, almost unnoticed. The horizon holds onto its warmth for a little longer, as if delaying the arrival of night. People move more slowly now. The work of the day is finished, or nearly finished. There is no need to begin anything new. The remaining time is for quiet tasks, for small movements that prepare for rest. The meal is shared. It is not large, not varied, but it is enough. There is warmth in it, not just from the fire, but from the rhythm of the day that led to this moment. Eating is slow. There is no reason to hurry through it. Light from the fire flickers gently across the room. It reaches faces, hands, the surface of the table. It moves softly, never still, always shifting just slightly. Beyond that light, shadows gather again. They return quietly, filling the corners, the edges, the spaces where light no longer reaches. There is no resistance to the darkness. It is expected. It is part of the day. Outside, the last light fades from the sky. The horizon dims, the colors disappear, and the night begins to take its place once more. Stars may appear, one by one, small and distant. They do not arrive all at once. They reveal themselves slowly, just as everything else does. The air cools again. The warmth of the day slips away, leaving behind a gentle chill. It is not sudden. It moves gradually, settling into the land. Inside, the fire becomes the center of the space. Its light is enough. Its warmth is enough. There is no need for anything more. The body begins to feel the weight of the day. Not a heavy weight, not uncomfortable, just a quiet tiredness that comes from steady effort. Muscles relax. Movements slow even further. There is less talking now. Less movement. More stillness. The day has reached its natural end. There is no extension of light. No way to continue beyond this moment. So everything begins to settle. Not all at once. But gently. As it always does. And in that quiet settling, the world returns once again to the soft, familiar darkness, where only firelight remains, and the slow rhythm of life continues, unbroken, into the calm of night. Night deepens quietly, without drawing attention to itself. The last traces of color have left the sky. What remains is a wide, open darkness, soft and steady. The stars, now more visible, rest far above, scattered across the sky in no particular pattern. They do not move quickly. They simply remain, distant and calm. Inside the home, the fire continues to burn. Its light is gentle, never reaching too far. It creates a small circle of warmth and visibility, leaving the rest of the room in shadow. The edges of objects blur softly into the darkness. Nothing stands out sharply. This limited light shapes the evening. There is only so much that can be done. Hands move closer to the flame when needed. Faces turn toward it. Beyond that small space, the night remains untouched. The sounds of the day have mostly faded. There are no footsteps outside now. No movement along the distant paths. The work that filled the hours of daylight has come to a full and natural stop. In its place, quieter sounds emerge. The soft crackle of wood in the fire. The occasional shift of a log settling into embers. A faint sound of wind brushing against the walls, moving gently across the land. Sometimes, from far away, there may be the distant call of an animal. It does not break the silence. It becomes part of it. Inside, movements are slow and few. A person may adjust their seat near the fire. Another piece of wood may be added, carefully, without haste. Each action is small, measured, and calm. There is no need for much activity. The night is not a time for work. It is a time for stillness. The body understands this. After a full day of steady effort, there is a natural desire to rest. Muscles loosen. Breathing slows. The mind, no longer focused on tasks, begins to quiet. Light from the fire flickers gently across the walls. It moves in soft patterns, never staying still. Shadows shift slightly, stretching and folding as the flame changes shape. This movement is slow, almost hypnotic. It does not demand attention. But it is there, always present. The air inside the home feels warmer near the fire, cooler farther away. This difference is subtle but noticeable. It draws people closer to the hearth, where the warmth is steady and comforting. There are no other sources of heat. No hidden systems. Only the fire, and the care it requires. As time passes, the fire begins to change. The flames grow smaller. The wood settles into glowing embers once again. The light softens even more, becoming dimmer, quieter. This is the signal that the night is moving forward. There is no clock to mark the hour. But the body knows. Eyes grow heavier. Movements become slower. There is a gentle pull toward sleep, guided not by routine, but by the natural rhythm of darkness. Preparations for rest are simple. There are no bright lights to turn off. No devices to set aside. Only the quiet act of letting the fire fade, or preparing it to last through the night. Sometimes, the embers are carefully arranged. A small covering of ash may be placed over them, helping them hold their warmth longer. This way, in the morning, they can be brought back to life more easily. This small act carries quiet importance. Because fire is not easily replaced. It is preserved, watched, and carried from one day to the next. As the room grows darker, people begin to settle into their sleeping places. These are simple spaces. A bed made from wood, perhaps filled with straw or covered with blankets. Nothing soft in the modern sense, but enough to provide rest after a long day. The air feels cooler now. Blankets are pulled closer. The warmth of the fire lingers, but it does not reach as far as before. The sounds of the night continue softly. Wind, distant and steady. The quiet presence of the land beyond the walls. The occasional creak of wood adjusting to the cooler air. There is no complete silence. But there is a deep quiet. A kind of stillness that holds everything gently. Breathing slows. The body relaxes further. Thoughts become softer, less defined. There is no lingering brightness to keep the mind awake. No sudden interruptions. Only darkness, and the steady passing of time. Sleep arrives gradually. Not all at once. It comes in waves, a slow drifting, a gentle release of the day. And once it arrives, it holds. The night continues without interruption. There are no lights turning on. No sounds to pull someone fully awake. Only the steady presence of darkness, stretching across the hours. Outside, the world remains calm. The land rests. The fields, the paths, the trees, all remain still under the quiet sky. The stars continue their slow, distant movement. Unnoticed by most. Unhurried. Time passes, but it does not feel like passing. It simply exists. And then, somewhere within that deep quiet, something begins to shift again. Very slowly. Almost too gently to notice. The darkness begins to soften. Not disappear, not yet, but change. The sky, still dark, holds the faintest hint of gray. It is the earliest sign. The first quiet step toward morning. Inside the home, nothing has changed yet. The fire rests in its final stage, a bed of dim embers beneath ash. The room remains dark, still, undisturbed. But the cycle continues. It always does. Without effort. Without interruption. Night slowly gives way to day. And the rhythm of life before electricity begins again, just as it did before, and just as it will again, steady, quiet, and unbroken. The earliest light of morning returns in a quiet and patient way. At first, it is almost nothing. The sky remains dark, but no longer as deep as before. A soft gray begins to gather, spreading slowly across the horizon. It does not rush forward. It simply grows, little by little, as if the night itself is gently loosening its hold. The stars begin to fade. Not all at once, and not with any clear ending. They grow dimmer, one by one, until only a few remain. Then even those disappear into the widening light. Outside, the air is cool again. It carries a faint dampness, a trace of the night that has just passed. The ground may hold a thin layer of moisture. Grass feels slightly wet. The earth smells fresh and still. The world is quiet. Not empty, but waiting. Then, slowly, the first sounds return. A single bird calls out. It is a soft sound, clear but not loud. It carries across the still air, reaching farther than it would during the noise of the day. After a moment, another bird answers from a distance. Then another. These sounds do not overlap too much. They are spaced apart, gentle, unhurried. Inside the home, there is stillness. The fire remains as a bed of quiet embers, hidden beneath ash. The room is dim, touched only by the faintest hint of gray light entering from outside. Then, slowly, there is movement. A shift beneath blankets. A quiet breath drawn a little deeper. The body begins to wake, not suddenly, but in stages. There is no alarm. No sound to force the moment. Only the natural rhythm of rest coming to an end. A person sits up slowly. The air feels cool against the skin. The warmth of sleep fades, replaced by the stillness of early morning. There is no rush to stand. No immediate task demanding attention. Just a quiet awareness that the day is beginning again. The first task is always the same. The fire must return. A person moves toward the hearth, kneeling close to the ashes. Hands work carefully, gently brushing aside the top layer. Beneath it, a faint glow remains. The embers are still alive. A small piece of dry wood is placed on top. Then another. A slow, steady breath is given, not too strong, not too quick. For a moment, nothing changes. Then, a slight shift. A faint red glow brightens. A thin line of smoke rises. And then, quietly, a small flame appears. It flickers softly, uncertain at first, then steadier as more air reaches it. With patience, it grows, bringing with it light and warmth. This is how the day begins again. Not with sudden brightness, but with a careful return of fire. The room slowly comes back into view. Shapes emerge from the dimness. The edges of furniture, the lines of the walls, the surface of the floor. Everything looks the same as it did the night before. Unchanged. Steady. Outside, the light continues to grow. The gray shifts toward pale blue. The horizon brightens. The land begins to reveal itself once more. Trees, fields, paths, all returning from shadow into gentle light. The door may open. A soft creak, familiar and quiet. Cool air moves inside, carrying with it the scent of morning. It feels fresh, clean, and still. Stepping outside, the world feels calm. The ground is firm beneath the feet, slightly damp from the night. The air touches the skin with a cool softness that will not last long. There is no rush to begin work. The day unfolds in its own time. Water must be brought again. The path to the well is the same as it was yesterday, and the day before that. Each step follows the familiar line of worn earth. There is comfort in this repetition. The rope lowers into the well. The bucket disappears into the darkness below. Then the sound of water, distant and quiet. The steady pull begins again. Hands move with practiced ease. The weight rises slowly, evenly. There is no strain, only effort. When the bucket reaches the top, it is full. The surface of the water reflects the growing light of the sky. It trembles slightly with movement, but remains contained. The walk back is careful. Each step measured. The water shifts gently, but does not spill. Inside the home, the fire has grown stronger. Its warmth begins to fill the space once more. The chill of early morning fades, replaced by a soft and steady heat. A simple meal begins again. Water is placed over the fire. Grain, or something saved from before, is added. The process is the same as always. There is no need to change it. The sounds return. The quiet bubbling. The soft movement of hands. The gentle crackle of the fire. Everything feels familiar. Nothing feels new. And yet, the day is new. Because each morning, even though it follows the same pattern, carries its own quiet presence. Outside, the sun begins to rise. It appears slowly, just above the edge of the land. Its light spreads outward, touching everything in a warm, gentle way. Shadows form again, long and soft. The world wakes fully. And with it, the steady rhythm of life before electricity begins once more, repeating, continuing, never hurried, always guided by light, by effort, and by the quiet passage of time. The morning light grows steadier as the sun rises higher into the sky. Its warmth begins to settle gently across the land, touching the fields, the trees, and the worn paths that stretch quietly between them. The coolness of early morning fades little by little, replaced by a soft and even warmth that feels natural and expected. Inside the home, the fire continues to burn with a calm, steady flame. It no longer needs as much care as it did at dawn. The wood has caught well, and the heat spreads slowly through the room. The faint chill that lingered in the corners begins to lift, leaving behind a comfortable stillness. The morning meal is finished. There is no rush to clear it away. Each movement happens slowly. A bowl is set aside. A utensil is placed in its usual spot. Nothing is done with force. Nothing is done quickly. Outside, the day has fully begun. The sun now stands clearly above the horizon, and its light reaches farther across the land. Shadows remain long, but they are shorter than before. They stretch across the ground in soft lines, marking the quiet passage of time. Work begins again, as it always does. Tools are gathered with familiar hands. There is no searching, no confusion. Each tool has its place, and each movement follows a pattern that has been repeated many times. The body knows what to do. There is no need for instruction. Stepping out into the open air, the world feels calm and wide. The sky is clear, open, and undisturbed. There are no lines crossing it, no distant structures breaking its quiet expanse. Only the soft blue stretching overhead. The land waits patiently. Fields lie open, unchanged from the day before. The soil holds its shape. The plants continue their slow growth, unaffected by anything sudden or artificial. Work begins with small movements. A step forward. A hand reaching down. A tool pressing gently into the earth. Each action flows into the next, forming a rhythm that is steady and unbroken. There is no need to hurry. The day is long, and the work is part of it. The sounds return as well. Not loud, not sharp, but present. The quiet scrape of metal or wood against soil. The soft press of feet moving across the ground. The faint rustle of plants shifting in the light breeze. These sounds do not interrupt the silence. They belong to it. From time to time, a person pauses. Not because something is wrong, but because the body moves in its own natural way. A moment of stillness comes without effort. Eyes lift. The horizon stretches wide and calm. There is nothing to demand attention. Nothing to pull the mind away. Only space, and light, and the quiet presence of the day. Nearby, others move in the same slow rhythm. Not close enough for constant conversation, but near enough to be aware of one another. There is a shared understanding in this distance. Each person working quietly, steadily, without the need for words. The air warms gradually. The cool edge of morning disappears completely now. The warmth is not heavy. It settles gently on the skin, steady and even. The breeze continues to move lightly. It carries with it the scent of earth and growing things. It passes through without staying, just enough to be noticed, then gone again. Back at the home, the interior remains dim compared to the outside. Light enters through small openings, but it does not fill the space completely. Shadows still rest along the edges of the room, soft and quiet. The fire has begun to lower again. Its purpose shifts with the day. It is no longer needed for strong warmth, only for simple tasks when required. The flame rests calmly, without urgency. Everything inside remains still. Objects do not move unless touched. There are no hidden sounds, no constant background noise. Only the quiet presence of a space at rest. Outside, the sun continues its steady climb. Shadows shorten further. The light becomes more direct, though still gentle. Time moves forward, but without pressure. There is no counting of hours. No marking of minutes. Only the slow change of light, guiding everything. The work continues in the same pattern. Nothing changes in its method. Nothing needs to. Because this rhythm has been shaped by the land, by the seasons, by the steady turning of days that follow one another without interruption. And so the morning stretches onward. Not in a straight line, but in a quiet flow. Each moment blending into the next. Each action repeating with calm familiarity. The world remains steady. The people within it move with quiet purpose. And the gentle rhythm of life before electricity continues, guided only by the rising sun, and the quiet understanding of time that asks for nothing more. The morning continues to open, slowly becoming something fuller and more settled. The sun rises higher, and with it, the light becomes more complete. It reaches into every open space, touching the ground evenly, leaving fewer places for shadow to rest. What shadows remain are softer now, shorter, and closer to the objects that create them. The air has warmed enough to be clearly felt. It is no longer cool in any sense. It rests gently on the skin, steady and calm. There is no sharpness to it, no sudden change. Just a quiet presence that grows stronger with time. Work continues across the land. The rhythm remains unchanged. A step forward. A movement of the hands. A pause that arrives without thought. Then movement again. Nothing feels forced. Nothing feels hurried. The body works in a way that matches the pace of the day itself, steady and unbroken. The sounds of the morning remain soft. There is the quiet contact between tool and soil. The faint shifting of plants. The distant calls of birds, now less frequent than before, but still present in the background. Even these sounds seem to fade in and out gently, never staying long enough to disturb the calm. From time to time, a breeze passes through. It moves lightly across the fields, touching leaves and grass, creating a soft ripple that travels for a moment before settling again. It carries with it the scent of the land, warm and dry now, mixed with the faint freshness that lingers from earlier hours. In these moments, there is a brief sense of coolness. Not enough to change the day, but enough to be noticed. And then it is gone. The sun continues its slow movement upward. Though it appears still, its position changes steadily. The shadows shift in response, growing shorter, drawing closer, slowly preparing for the fullness of midday. There is no announcement of this change. No signal. Only the quiet awareness that the light has become stronger, more direct. The body feels it. Movements become slightly slower. Not from effort alone, but from the warmth that now rests across the land. Still, the work does not stop. It continues, as it always does, shaped by the understanding that the day offers only so many hours of light. Nearby, the land stretches outward in quiet openness. There are no sudden changes in the distance. No movement that draws the eye. Only fields, trees, and the long lines of earth shaped by repeated care. Everything appears still, even as it is slowly changing. Growth happens quietly. Time passes without sound. Back at the home, the fire has lowered again. It rests now, no longer central to the moment. The warmth it once provided is replaced by the steady heat of the day itself. Inside, the air is still. Cooler than outside, but not cold. The light that enters through the openings is soft, slightly dimmed, creating a calm space where shadows remain gentle and undisturbed. Nothing inside moves. There is no reason for it to. The home waits, just as it always does, ready for return. Outside, the day approaches its middle. The sun nears its highest point, though it has not reached it yet. The light feels full now, no longer growing, but holding steady. The shadows are short. The ground appears evenly lit. There is a quiet balance in this moment. Work begins to slow, almost without intention. The body responds to the fullness of the day. Movements become more measured. Pauses last a little longer. Not out of fatigue alone, but out of a natural adjustment to the rhythm of light and warmth. There is no voice guiding this change. It happens on its own. A tool may be set down for a moment. Hands rest. Eyes lift toward the sky, not searching for anything, just noticing the wide, open stillness above. Breathing slows. The steady effort of the morning settles into a calm, even rhythm. This is not yet rest. But it is close to it. A space between movement and stillness. The quiet edge of midday. The land remains unchanged in appearance. But the feeling of the day has shifted. There is a softness now, a quiet pause that begins to spread. The sun holds its place for a while longer. The light remains steady. Nothing asks for urgency. Nothing demands speed. Everything continues as it always has. Slowly. Gently. without interruption. And as the final moments before midday pass, the rhythm of life remains unbroken, carried forward by the steady presence of light, and the quiet understanding that time moves not in numbers, but in the soft and constant change of the world itself. Midday arrives without any clear boundary. There is no single moment when morning ends and the middle of the day begins. Instead, the light simply reaches a point where it feels complete, steady, and fully present across the land. The sun stands high above. Its position is calm and unmoving to the eye, though it continues its slow path. The light it gives is even and direct, touching everything with the same quiet consistency. Shadows are at their shortest now. They rest close to the feet of trees, beneath tools, along the smallest edges of objects. There is very little contrast between light and dark. The world appears open and clear. The air is warm. Not heavy, not overwhelming, but constant. It settles across the land without change. The breeze, if it comes, is softer now, slower, and less frequent. Work slows naturally. There is no signal to stop, but the body begins to ease its pace. Movements become smaller. Pauses become longer. A tool is set down. Hands rest at the sides. There is a quiet understanding that this is the time to pause. People step away from the fields or remain where they are, finding a place to sit or stand in stillness. Shade becomes more noticeable now. Under a tree, the air feels cooler. The ground is firm but comfortable. The light filters softly through leaves, creating gentle patterns that shift slowly with the faint movement of branches. Sitting in this shade, there is nothing that needs to be done. The work of the morning has already been given its time. The work of the afternoon will come later. For now, there is space to rest. A simple meal may be taken. There is no elaborate preparation. Food that has been made earlier is brought out. Bread, perhaps. Something small and steady, enough to sustain but not to fill completely. Eating happens quietly. There is no rush. Each movement is slow, each moment unhurried. The warmth of the day remains present, but in the shade, it feels balanced. The body settles into stillness more easily here. Nearby, others rest in the same way. There is no need for conversation. The presence of others is enough. A shared quiet fills the space between them. The sounds of midday are different from the morning. The birds are less active now. Their calls are fewer, more spaced apart. In their place, a soft and steady hum of insects fills the air. It is not loud, but constant. A gentle layer of sound that seems to rest over everything. This sound does not distract. It becomes part of the stillness. The sky above is wide and clear. There are no changes to watch. No sudden movements. Only the steady presence of light stretching in every direction. Time moves quietly here. There is no need to measure it. The body feels it instead. The slowing of breath. The gentle weight of rest. The easing of effort. After some time, movement begins again. Not all at once. Not in any coordinated way. Just a gradual return. A person shifts their position. Another stands slowly, stretching without urgency. A tool is picked up again. Work resumes, but softly. The intensity of the morning is gone. What remains is a quieter, more measured pace. The sun has begun its slow descent, though it is still high. The change is subtle. Almost unnoticeable at first. But the light begins to soften, just slightly. The shadows, once very short, begin to stretch again. Only a little. but enough to show that time is moving forward. The air remains warm, but the edge of heat begins to ease. The breeze returns in small moments. It moves gently, carrying the scent of dry earth and distant growth. Work continues in this softened light. The rhythm remains steady. Nothing changes in the actions themselves. Only the feeling of the day shifts. There is less weight in each movement. Less pressure in each step. Everything feels more open, more spacious. Back at the home, the quiet stillness remains. The fire rests low, nearly forgotten for the moment. The inside space holds a soft dimness, even in the fullness of day. Shadows remain along the walls. The air is calm. Nothing disturbs it. Outside, the world continues its slow transition. The sun lowers little by little. The light begins to warm again, taking on a softer tone. The day is moving forward, just as it always does. Without pause. Without resistance. And in this gentle continuation, life before electricity carries on, shaped by light, guided by the body, and held within a rhythm that never needs to be spoken, because it is always quietly understood. The afternoon slowly leans toward evening, almost without being noticed at first. The change is not sudden. It does not announce itself. It happens in small, quiet ways that only become clear after some time has passed. The sun begins to lower, just slightly at first. The light, once strong and direct, starts to soften. It no longer presses evenly across everything. Instead, it takes on a warmer tone, as if the sky itself is growing calmer. Shadows begin to stretch again. At first, only a little. Then gradually, more noticeably. They move across the ground with a slow and steady reach, returning after their brief absence at midday. The air also begins to change. The warmth of the afternoon eases, not disappearing, but settling into something gentler. There is a slight coolness returning in the breeze, subtle but present. Work continues, but its character shifts. The earlier energy of the day is gone. Movements are steady, but softer. There is no push forward, only continuation. A tool is lifted. Placed. Lifted again. Each action feels slightly lighter, as if the body is already aware that the day is moving toward its end. In the fields and open spaces, people begin to notice the light more often. Not in a rushed way, but in quiet glances. The position of the sun. The length of shadows. The angle of light across the ground. These are the only markers of time. There is no need for anything else. The sky above remains open and wide. But its color begins to deepen slightly. The blue softens. A faint warmth gathers closer to the horizon. It is still day. But the feeling of evening is approaching. Back at the home, small preparations begin again. Not all at once. Just small, familiar actions that belong to this part of the day. Water may be brought in once more. Wood may be gathered and placed near the hearth. Nothing urgent. Nothing forced. Only readiness. The fire, which had rested low during the afternoon, is checked again. It is still there. Still warm beneath the ash. Still capable of returning. This quiet reliability is part of daily life. The knowledge that nothing is lost as long as it is tended. Outside, the light continues its slow descent. The warmth of the sun becomes softer now, more angled, less direct. It touches the land differently than before. Longer shadows stretch across fields and paths, marking the slow turning of the day. The sounds of the afternoon begin to shift as well. Birds become more active again. Their calls return, but in a different tone than morning. Less about beginning. More about return. Insects continue their steady presence, though their rhythm blends more deeply into the background now. Everything feels slightly slower. Slightly quieter. Work begins to wind down naturally. There is no single moment of stopping. Just a gradual easing of movement. A final task completed. A tool set down and left in place. A glance toward the sky. Then stillness. People begin to gather their things. Not quickly. Not in a hurry. Just in the natural order of finishing what has been done. Paths that were busy earlier now feel calmer. Steps are fewer. The land seems to settle along with the people moving through it. As the sun lowers further, the sky takes on a deeper warmth. The light becomes softer, almost golden in places. It spreads across the horizon in a gentle wash, as if the day is slowly being drawn closed. Inside the home, the first flame is brought back. Carefully. Patiently. A small spark is encouraged into life. Then another. Then a steady flicker returns. The fire does not return all at once. It grows. Slowly. As it always does. The glow spreads across the interior space, bringing back the familiar circle of light. Shadows return, but now they feel different. Not like the stillness of night yet, but the beginning of it. The evening meal is prepared again. Simple. Warm. Steady. The same rhythm as always. But each time, it feels slightly different, because the light around it is changing. Outside, the sky continues to deepen. The sun nears the edge of the land. Its light stretches long and low across the ground, painting everything in soft gold and quiet orange. The world feels like it is holding still for a moment. Not frozen. Just calm. Balanced. Even the wind feels softer now. More careful in its movement. The day is not ending quickly. It is fading slowly, in layers. And in that fading, everything becomes more gentle. More quiet. More still. Work is finished now. There is nothing left that needs doing under daylight. Only the return home. Only the gathering of small, final movements before night begins. And as the last light rests along the horizon, the rhythm of life before electricity turns once again toward evening, where firelight grows, shadows deepen, and the world begins its slow return into calm darkness. Evening arrives like a slow closing of the sky. There is no sharp ending to the day. No sudden shift. The light simply thins out, little by little, as if the world is exhaling after a long breath. The sun lowers closer to the horizon. Its glow stretches wide and soft across the land. The colors deepen now, warm golds turning into muted oranges, then into a quiet amber that lingers just a bit longer before fading. Shadows grow long again. They no longer sit close and short like they did at midday. Instead, they stretch outward, reaching across fields, paths, and wooden fences. Everything begins to feel elongated, as if time itself is gently pulling outward. The air cools slowly. Not quickly, not sharply. Just a steady easing away from the warmth of the day. The breeze feels different now, less dry, more calm, carrying the faint memory of sunlight that is still fading. Work has ended for most of the day. There is no final signal, no announcement. It simply reaches a point where the body knows. Tools are set down. Shoulders relax. Movement slows until it finally stops. The return home happens in quiet steps. Paths that were active earlier are now softer with silence. Footsteps are fewer, spaced apart, moving in a steady rhythm back towards shelter. Inside the home, the fire grows brighter again. It is not large, but it is steady. Carefully tended, it becomes the center of the evening once more. Its glow fills the room with a warm circle of light that feels smaller than daylight, but more personal. Shadows return inside as well. They gather at the edges of the room, in corners, under furniture, along the walls. They do not feel empty or heavy. They feel familiar. Expected. The evening meal is simple. It is prepared without hurry, as it always is. The act of cooking is slow and practiced. Nothing changes in its order. Nothing needs to. The sound of the fire becomes more noticeable now. A soft crackle. A gentle shifting of wood. The occasional pop as heat moves through the embers. These sounds fill the space where daylight once was. People gather quietly. There is no need for much conversation. The day has already spoken in its own way through effort, movement, and time passed under the sun. Now there is only stillness and rest. Outside, the sky continues its slow transformation. The deep orange at the horizon fades into a darker shade. Then into gray. Then into the early shape of night. The first stars begin to appear. One at a time. Not all at once. Not in brightness. But slowly, as if they are returning to their places after a long, quiet absence. The land grows darker. But not empty. It is still full of air, of space, of the quiet presence of everything that does not need light to exist. Inside, the firelight becomes more important. It is now the only steady source of brightness. It moves gently across faces, walls, and wooden surfaces, shifting constantly but never leaving. Time feels slower in the evening. Not because it moves differently, but because everything else has softened around it. There are fewer actions. Fewer decisions. Just presence. Sitting. Resting. Watching the fire. The body begins to settle more deeply now. The effort of the day has left its quiet mark not as fatigue, but as a natural heaviness that invites stillness. Outside, night fully approaches. The last line of light disappears from the horizon. The sky darkens completely. And the stars become clearer, more present, more steady. There is no noise from the world beyond the home now. Only the faint wind. The distant movement of unseen things. The quiet breathing of the land itself as it rests. Inside, the fire lowers slightly, then steadies again. It does not need to burn high. Only enough to remain. Enough to last through the night. People begin to prepare for sleep. Not with urgency. Not with structure. Just slowly moving toward rest. Blankets are arranged. The fire is checked one final time. The room grows quieter with each passing moment. There is no artificial brightness to turn off. No mechanical sound to silence. Only the slow transition into darkness. And then stillness. Sleep arrives gradually, like everything else in this world. Not all at once. But softly. As the fire continues to glow in its small, steady way, and the night settles fully over the land, the home becomes quiet, holding the warmth of the day just long enough to carry it gently into tomorrow. Night settles more deeply now, not as an arrival, but as a continuation of quiet. The home rests in a small circle of firelight, while everything beyond it fades into a soft and complete darkness. The fire does not grow. It does not need to. It simply remains steady, holding its small space of warmth and visibility. The sounds of the day are gone. There is no movement outside. No distant work. No footsteps along the paths. The land has fully entered its resting state. Only the wind remains. Even it moves gently, without urgency. It passes across the walls of the home, brushing against wood and earth in a slow, steady rhythm. Inside, everything is still. The fire flickers softly, changing shape with each small movement of air. Its glow reaches only so far. Beyond that, the room becomes quiet shadow. This limited light shapes the feeling of the night. It creates closeness. Everything important is drawn near the fire: seating, sleeping spaces, simple objects used during the evening. The rest of the room is allowed to fade into darkness without concern. There is no need to see everything. Only what is needed. Time passes in a way that no longer feels structured. There are no markers now. No visible changes except the slow movement of flame and the occasional settling of wood within the hearth. The night becomes something to exist within, rather than something to measure. Sleep comes in layers. Not all at once, but gradually. A slowing of thought. A softening of awareness. The body easing into rest without resistance. The fire continues its quiet presence. It does not demand attention. It does not interrupt sleep. It simply remains, a steady point of warmth in a dark and still world. Outside, the land is completely quiet now. Fields rest without movement. Trees stand still against the night sky. Paths that were once full of activity are now only shapes in darkness. Above it all, the stars remain. They do not change quickly. They do not grow or fade in any noticeable way. They simply exist, distant, calm, and steady. The moon, if present, adds a softer layer of light. It does not brighten the world fully, but it gives shape to the darkness, outlining the land in gentle tones. Inside the home, the fire begins to lower again. The flames reduce slowly, not suddenly. The wood shifts into glowing embers once more. The bright flicker fades into a steady, quiet glow. This is the deepest part of the night. The part where everything slows the most. The part where even thought becomes softer. The body rests completely now. There is no effort left. No movement needed. Just stillness. Breathing continues, steady and calm, blending into the quiet rhythm of the room. Time passes without recognition. Not because it is empty, but because it is uninterrupted. No light changes to mark it. No sound breaks it. Only the gradual, gentle flow of night continuing forward. And then, somewhere far beyond awareness, the first shift begins again. Very faint. Almost unnoticeable. The darkness softens at the edges of the sky. Not yet dawn. Not yet change. Just the earliest suggestion that it will come. Inside, nothing responds yet. The fire still rests low. The home remains still. Sleep continues. But the cycle has already begun its return. As it always does. Without effort. Without pause. Without end. And in that quiet continuation, the night holds everything gently, until it is ready once again to release it into morning. The night remains still, holding its quiet shape over the land. Everything is calm in a way that feels complete, as if the world has settled fully into rest. The fire inside the home continues to glow faintly, its light reduced now to a soft, steady ember-like presence. It does not move much anymore. It does not need to. The room is dark beyond its reach, but this darkness is not heavy. It feels natural, familiar, and deeply ordinary, like something that has always been there and always will be. Outside, the land rests without interruption. No footsteps pass along the paths. No distant work begins. No movement breaks the stillness. Fields and trees remain in quiet outline under the night sky, barely visible unless the moonlight touches them. Even the air feels slower now. It moves gently, almost imperceptibly, brushing against the walls of the home and then fading away again into silence. Inside, sleep deepens. It is not a sudden change, but a gradual sinking into rest. Thoughts become less structured, less defined. The body loosens further, releasing the last traces of the day. The fire remains present. Not as a source of brightness now, but as a memory of warmth still alive in the room. Its soft glow marks time in a way that is no longer important to notice. Everything has slowed. Everything has settled. The night reaches its most complete form here. There is no need for sound. No need for light. No need for movement. Only stillness. And yet, even in this deep quiet, the world continues its quiet turning. Far above, the sky remains open and wide. Stars hold their distant positions, unchanged and patient. The moon, if present, moves slowly across its path, casting faint, soft light that barely touches the earth below. Time passes without awareness. Not measured. Not divided. Simply flowing forward in an unbroken way. Inside the home, the fire begins to change again. Not quickly. Not noticeably at first. Just a gradual settling. The flames shrink further, leaving more glowing embers than visible fire. The warmth remains, but it is quieter now, more contained. This is the deepest part of the night's rhythm. The moment when even the fire begins to rest. Outside, there is a subtle shift in the air. A softness that suggests something beyond the night is approaching, though it is still far away. The sky holds this change gently, without revealing it fully. Inside, sleep continues undisturbed. Breathing is slow and steady. The body is fully at rest. There is no awareness of time passing, no sense of direction, only the comfort of stillness and warmth. The home becomes part of the night itself. Not separate from it, but held within it. Wood, stone, air, fire, and silence all existing together in the same quiet space. And then, almost imperceptibly, the darkness begins to shift again. Not breaking. Not ending. Just softening at its edges. A faint gray begins to gather far beyond the walls of the home, not yet visible to those inside, but present in the wider world. The night is not over. But it is changing. As it always does. Slowly. Naturally. Without interruption. Inside, nothing reacts. The fire continues to glow faintly. Sleep continues without disturbance. And the world moves gently forward, holding everything within its calm and steady rhythm, until the first light of morning returns once again. The night continues its long, quiet presence, holding the world in a soft and steady stillness. Inside the home, the fire has nearly reached its final stage. What once was flame is now mostly glowing embers, resting beneath a thin layer of ash. The light is faint, barely enough to outline nearby objects. Everything beyond it has returned fully to darkness. But even this darkness feels familiar. It does not press in. It does not feel empty. It simply exists, surrounding the small warmth of the home like a calm, protective silence. Sleep remains deep. There is no awareness of time passing. No sense of distance between one moment and the next. The body rests fully, held in the quiet rhythm of the night. Outside, the land is unchanged. Fields lie still. Trees stand without movement. Paths remain undisturbed, their shapes softened by darkness. Everything is resting in its own way, without effort or interruption. The wind moves occasionally. Not strongly. Not sharply. Just enough to be noticed as a faint presence brushing across the world. It does not linger. It passes through and continues on, leaving no trace behind. Above, the sky holds steady. Stars remain in place, distant and unmoving to the eye. The moon, if visible, continues its slow journey, casting a soft, pale light that touches only the highest and most open spaces of the land. Time continues without markers. There is no sound to define it. No light to measure it. Only the quiet progression of night. Inside the home, the fire lowers further. The embers glow softly now, their brightness reduced to a gentle, steady pulse. They do not flicker as much anymore. They simply hold warmth, quietly enduring through the hours. This is the quiet center of the night. Not active. Not changing quickly. Just stable. And still. Sleep deepens even further. It is no longer connected to awareness of the world outside. It becomes complete rest, uninterrupted and calm. Breathing remains slow and even. The body releases the last traces of the day. Everything becomes softer. Everything becomes stiller. Outside, the darkness begins to change in a way that is almost invisible at first. It is not a disappearance of night, but a subtle loosening of it. The sky, which had been fully dark, begins to carry the faintest suggestion of gray far along the horizon. It is too early to be called morning. Too faint to be clearly noticed. But it is there. The beginning of return. Inside, nothing responds yet. The fire remains low. The room remains still. Sleep continues without interruption. The night still holds most of the world in its quiet grip. But time has already begun its slow turn. The same turn it always makes. Without urgency. Without sound. Without change that can be easily seen. Only a gradual movement forward, as steady as breathing itself. The land remains asleep. The home remains quiet. And the cycle continues, carrying everything gently toward the first light of another morning, where fire will rise again, shadows will return, and the slow rhythm of life before electricity will begin once more, just as it always has. The night holds on, but it is no longer completely still in the same way. There is a subtle softness now, a quiet suggestion that the darkness is not as deep as it was earlier. It is not yet morning. It is not yet change that can be clearly seen. But something in the sky has begun to shift. Inside the home, the fire is nearly asleep. The embers remain, glowing faintly beneath the ash. Their light is so soft now that it barely reaches beyond the hearth. The room is mostly dark, shaped more by memory than by sight. Everything is quiet. Not only outside, but inside as well. Sleep continues without disturbance. It is deep and steady, the kind of rest that does not break easily. The body remains still, fully surrendered to the night. Outside, the land rests in full silence. Fields are motionless. Trees do not move. Paths are empty. There is no trace of activity from the day before, as if the world has paused completely in this moment. And yet, it is not truly paused. The night breathes slowly. A faint wind passes through open spaces, moving gently across the land. It does not change anything. It simply travels, soft and quiet, then fades again into stillness. Above, the sky begins its most subtle transformation. The darkness is still present, but along the farthest edge of the horizon, there is a barely noticeable change. A faint grayness gathers there, so light it almost blends into the night itself. It does not spread quickly. It does not announce itself. It simply exists, slowly becoming more present over time. Inside the home, the fire shifts again. The embers dim slightly, then settle into a steady, low glow. There is almost no flicker now. Just warmth held quietly in place. This is the deepest quiet of the entire cycle. Not the beginning of night, and not yet the return of morning. Just the middle space between them. A long, unbroken stillness. Sleep remains complete. There is no awareness of anything beyond rest. No thought of time. No awareness of change outside the walls. Only calm. Only silence. Only the steady rhythm of breathing. Outside, the faint gray along the horizon grows a little more distinct. Still soft. Still distant. But no longer as uncertain as before. The night is beginning to loosen its hold. Not suddenly. Not visibly. But gradually, in a way that can only be noticed if one were awake long enough to see it change. Inside, nothing stirs. The fire remains low. The home remains still. And sleep continues uninterrupted. But the cycle, as it always does, moves forward. Slowly. Quietly. Without resistance. The darkness is not ending yet, but it is preparing to change. The first suggestion of morning is already present in the sky, even if the land beneath it does not yet respond. And in that quiet, almost invisible shift, the world continues its endless rhythm, carrying everything gently from night toward day once more, as it has always done, and as it will continue to do. The night is still present, but it feels slightly thinner now, as if it is no longer holding the world with the same depth as before. The change is not clear enough to define. It cannot be named as morning yet. It is only a quiet softening, spread across the far edge of the sky, where darkness meets distance. Inside the home, the fire remains low. The embers glow with a calm, steady warmth, their light reduced to the smallest presence of fire still alive. It is enough to suggest warmth, but not enough to shape the room in detail. The darkness around it remains wide and soft. Sleep continues. Deep, uninterrupted, and still. There is no sense of time passing within it. No awareness of the outside world. Only rest, held gently and without resistance. Outside, the land remains quiet. Fields are still. Trees are motionless. The paths that connected daily movement are now only faint shapes beneath the night sky. Everything rests in place. Everything remains unchanged. And yet, the sky continues to shift. The faint gray along the horizon grows a little clearer. It does not brighten fully. It does not break the darkness. It only spreads slowly, like something waking without sound. The stars above begin to fade slightly. Not all at once. Not suddenly. But one by one, their brightness becomes less distinct, blending gradually into the deepening gray of the approaching change. The night is still here. But it is no longer complete. Inside the home, nothing moves. The fire holds its final stage of the night quiet embers, resting beneath ash. There is no need for more wood. No need for attention. It simply remains, waiting for the moment it will be needed again. The air inside is calm. Cooler than the warmth of earlier evening, but not cold. It carries the stillness of long hours without movement, softened by the presence of sleeping breath. Sleep remains unbroken. It is steady, full, and undisturbed. The body rests without effort, carried by the natural weight of night. Outside, the faint gray expands further. It is now more noticeable, though still gentle. It spreads along the edge of the world, touching the outlines of distant trees and open land without fully revealing them. The transition is slow enough that it feels almost like nothing is happening. And yet, everything is changing. The night is easing away. The morning is not yet here. But it is forming. Quietly. Gradually. Without sound or urgency. Inside, the fire remains unchanged. The home remains still. Sleep continues as if nothing beyond the walls exists. But the cycle has already turned again, as it always does, moving forward without pause, carrying the world through its endless rhythm of night into day. And in this quiet in-between moment, everything waits gently for the first real light to arrive, when the darkness will finally soften enough to become morning once more. The darkness is still present, but it no longer feels absolute. There is a softness now at the edges of the sky, a quiet lifting that cannot yet be called morning, but no longer belongs fully to night. It is a space between two states, holding both at once in a calm and silent balance. Inside the home, the fire has nearly finished its long work. The embers remain, glowing faintly beneath a thin layer of ash. Their light is steady but very weak now, barely touching the floor around the hearth. The room is almost completely dark, shaped more by memory than by sight. Everything is still. Sleep continues in its deepest form. There is no movement, no awareness of the outside world, only rest that holds the body in a quiet and uninterrupted state. Outside, the land remains unchanged. Fields lie still under the night sky. Trees stand without motion. The paths that connected daily life are now only faint suggestions in the darkness, barely visible unless the eye is already searching for them. The wind moves rarely. When it does, it is gentle, passing across the land without changing anything. It does not disturb the silence. It becomes part of it, then fades again. Above, the sky continues its slow transformation. The faint gray along the horizon grows more defined. It is still soft, still gentle, but it is no longer uncertain. It has a presence now that can be quietly recognized. The stars begin to lose their sharpness. Their light is still there, but it is less distinct. Some fade more quickly than others, blending into the widening gray that slowly takes over the edge of the sky. This is not a sudden change. It is a gradual unfolding. A slow return that happens without sound. Inside, nothing shifts. The fire remains low and steady. The home remains still. Sleep continues without interruption. There is no sense of time passing for those resting within it. Only calm, and silence, and the soft weight of the night holding everything in place. But outside, the change is no longer subtle. The horizon is now clearly different from the rest of the sky. The gray is spreading wider, stretching further upward, slowly preparing the world for light. The night is still here. But it is thinning. Like fabric slowly loosening thread by thread. And yet, nothing rushes. Nothing forces the change. It simply continues, in its own quiet rhythm. Inside the home, the embers dim further. Not extinguished, but resting at their lowest point. They hold warmth without flame, presence without brightness. The room is almost completely dark now. Only shapes remain. Soft outlines of stillness. Sleep remains steady. Unbroken. Deep. The kind of rest that carries the body through long hours without awareness of anything beyond itself. Outside, the sky shifts again. The gray along the horizon is now more open, more present. It begins to separate itself from the darkness above, forming a clear boundary between what has been and what is coming. Still, no light breaks through fully. The night remains. But it is no longer in its deepest form. The world is in transition. Slow. Quiet. Unseen except in gradual feeling. Inside, nothing changes. The fire holds its final embers. The home remains still. Sleep continues. And the cycle moves forward, as it always does, without pause or interruption, carrying the world gently toward the moment when night will finally give way to morning once again. The night is no longer as deep as it once was. It still surrounds the world, still holds the land in its quiet presence, but something has softened within it. The edges of darkness no longer feel as complete. They feel stretched thin, like a veil beginning to loosen. Inside the home, the fire is almost entirely at rest. Only embers remain now, glowing faintly beneath ash and cooled wood. The light they give is so small that it feels more like memory than illumination. The room is mostly dark, shaped in soft outlines that shift only when the eyes adjust. Sleep continues without interruption. It is steady, deep, and complete. There is no awareness of time passing, no sense of the world outside. Only rest, held gently within the stillness of night. Outside, the land remains unchanged in form, but not in feeling. Fields are still. Trees are still. Paths remain empty and quiet, their presence only suggested by the faint differences in the land's surface. But above it all, the sky continues to shift. The gray along the horizon has grown wider now. It no longer feels like a distant suggestion. It has become a clear, soft presence that gently separates the earth from the remaining darkness above. The stars are fading further. Some are still visible, but their brightness is reduced, softened by the growing light beneath them. Others have already disappeared, blending quietly into the changing sky. The night is still here. But it is no longer whole. Inside the home, nothing moves. The fire remains in its final stage of the night, low, steady, almost silent in its presence. It does not flicker much anymore. It simply holds warmth in a quiet, fading glow. The air is calm. Still. Undisturbed. Sleep continues in its deepest form. There is no shift in awareness, no return of thought. Only rest that stretches through time without interruption. Outside, the horizon continues its slow transformation. The gray grows slightly brighter, spreading upward in a gradual rise that does not yet become light, but prepares for it. This is the moment before change becomes visible. The threshold between night and morning. It is not sudden. It does not announce itself. It simply continues, as it has been doing all along. Inside, the home remains unchanged. The fire holds its final embers. The room remains still and dark. Sleep continues. And yet, beyond all of the stillness, the cycle is already turning. Slowly. Quietly. Inevitably. The darkness is loosening. The morning is forming. Not yet present, but already becoming. And in this quiet space between what has ended and what is about to begin, everything rests gently, held in the calm rhythm that has carried it through every night before, and will carry it again into the next day. The night is now at its quietest edge, where darkness and morning begin to overlap. Nothing changes quickly. Nothing breaks or ends. Instead, the world simply feels different. Softer. Less sealed in than before. Inside the home, the fire has nearly completed its long passage through the night. The embers remain, but they are weak now. Their glow is faint, resting low beneath ash and cooling wood. They do not flicker with strength anymore. They simply exist, holding on to the last trace of warmth. The room is almost entirely dark. Shapes are only barely visible, and even then, only because the eyes have adjusted to the absence of light. Everything feels still, as if the house itself is resting along with its occupants. Sleep continues without disturbance. It is deep and steady, carrying the body through the final hours of night without awareness of change. There is no sense of time, no awareness of the world beyond the walls. Only quiet rest. Outside, the land remains calm. Fields lie in silence. Trees do not move. Paths remain empty, their outlines softened by darkness that is slowly losing its depth. And above it all, the sky continues its transformation. The gray along the horizon is now more pronounced. It stretches farther upward, no longer just a thin line at the edge of the world, but a broader space where night is beginning to loosen. The stars are fewer now. Their light is dimmer, less certain. Some have disappeared completely. Others remain faint, barely distinguishable from the softening sky around them. The night is still present. But it feels as though it is stepping back, making space for something else. Inside the home, nothing stirs. The fire remains in its lowest state, embers resting quietly beneath ash. There is no urgency left in it. No need for attention. It simply holds warmth in a fading form. The air is cool, but not cold. It carries the stillness of long hours without movement, softened by the presence of sleep that continues undisturbed. Outside, the horizon brightens just slightly more. The gray is no longer uniform. It begins to show variation, lighter near the edge of the land, darker above. A slow gradient forming, as if the sky is preparing itself layer by layer. This is the threshold of change. Not yet morning. Not yet night. Just the space between them. Inside, sleep remains complete. There is no shift in awareness, no return of thought or movement. Only rest, deep and unbroken, held gently within the quiet home. The fire continues its final stillness. The room remains dark. And the world outside continues its slow unfolding. The darkness is not gone. But it is no longer absolute. It is thinning. Softening. Releasing its hold little by little. And in that quiet release, the cycle moves forward, as it always has, carrying everything gently toward the first true light of morning, where the fire will rise again, the day will begin again, and life before electricity will continue its steady, familiar rhythm once more. The night is almost finished now, though nothing about it feels like an ending. It is more like a slow loosening, as if the world has been holding still for a long time and is only now beginning to relax again. Inside the home, the fire has reached its quietest form. Only embers remain, dim and steady beneath a thin covering of ash. They no longer glow with any real brightness. Instead, they give off a faint warmth, enough to remind the room that fire was once strong here through the night. The darkness inside the house is complete in most places. Only the smallest area around the hearth holds any trace of light, and even that is soft and uncertain. The rest of the room exists in quiet shadow, unchanged and still. Sleep continues. Deep. Unbroken. There is no awareness of the changing sky, no sense of movement in the world outside. The body remains at rest, fully settled into the final hours of night. Outside, the land is calm in a different way now. It is no longer the deep stillness of full night. It is something lighter, something less sealed. The darkness does not feel as heavy as before. The fields are still there. The trees are still there. But their outlines begin to separate slightly from the darkness around them. Above, the sky is clearly shifting. The gray that once stayed close to the horizon has now spread upward, covering more of the sky than before. It is still soft, still quiet, but it is no longer confined to the edge of the world. The stars continue to fade. Some are no longer visible at all. Others remain only as faint traces, struggling gently against the growing light that is not yet fully present but is steadily returning. The night is still here. But it is no longer deep. It is thinning in a way that cannot be stopped, only witnessed. Inside the home, nothing moves. The fire remains low and resting. The air is still. Sleep continues without interruption, holding everything in a calm and steady state. There is no sense that anything is about to happen. And yet, the world outside has already begun to change. The horizon grows lighter. Not bright yet. Not warm yet. But no longer fully dark. It is a slow unfolding, like a curtain being gently pulled back without sound. The land begins to separate itself from the night. Shapes become a little clearer. Distance becomes a little more readable. The world is starting to return, though very softly, very gradually. Inside, the fire remains unchanged. The home remains still. Sleep continues. And in this final stretch of the night, everything is held in a quiet balance between darkness and light. The night is not gone. But it is no longer in control. And the morning, still far from full arrival, is already beginning to exist within it, quietly, patiently, waiting for the moment when it will finally take over completely, as it always does, in the steady rhythm of life before electricity. The night is now at its softest edge, where it feels less like darkness and more like waiting. Nothing has fully changed yet, but everything is slightly different than it was before. The air, the sky, the land itself, they all carry a quiet sense of transition. Inside the home, the fire is almost completely still. The embers remain, but they are weak and fading. Their glow is barely visible now, resting low beneath ash and cooling wood. There is no flicker left that draws attention. Only a faint, steady warmth that holds on through the final hours of darkness. The room is silent. Completely still. Shaped only by shadow and memory of light. Sleep continues without interruption. It is deep, steady, and uninterrupted by anything outside. There is no sense of time, no awareness of change. Only rest, full and complete, holding the body gently in place. Outside, the land begins to show the first quiet signs of return. Not movement. Not sound. Only subtle visibility. The outlines of fields are slightly clearer now. Trees are no longer fully swallowed by darkness. Their shapes begin to separate from the sky behind them. Above, the horizon continues to brighten. The gray has grown wider and more stable. It is no longer a thin line. It is a broad band that stretches across the edge of the world, slowly lifting upward. The stars are now fewer. Many have already faded completely. Others remain, but they are faint, almost hesitant, as if they are slowly giving way to something larger and more present. The night is still here. But it is no longer deep. It feels stretched thin, like something that has been held for too long and is now gently releasing. Inside the home, nothing moves. The fire remains in its final resting stage. The air is cool and still, shaped by hours of silence. There is no sound beyond the faintest presence of wind outside, moving without urgency. Sleep continues. unbroken, undisturbed. The body remains fully at rest, held in the final stretch of night without awareness of what is changing beyond the walls. Outside, the sky shifts again. The gray becomes slightly brighter, especially along the horizon. It begins to show depth now, not just a single tone but layers lighter near the edge of the land, darker above. This is the slow formation of morning. Not yet light. Not yet day. But the beginning of both. Inside, the fire is unchanged. The home is still. Sleep continues. And the world outside moves forward in its quiet rhythm, as it always has, carrying everything gently from the end of night toward the beginning of another day. There is no sudden moment when the change will happen. Only this slow unfolding. This steady return. And in that quiet space between darkness and light, everything waits softly, calmly, and without resistance for morning to finally arrive. The night is now very thin, though it still remains. It no longer feels like a deep presence holding the world. Instead, it feels like something light and fading, stretched gently across the land while slowly giving way to what comes next. Inside the home, the fire has reached its final quiet state. The embers are faint now, barely glowing beneath ash and cooling wood. There is almost no visible light left from them, only a soft suggestion of warmth that lingers in the hearth. The room is still and dark, shaped by silence, and by the long hours of rest that have passed without interruption. Sleep continues. Deep and steady. There is no awareness of time or change. Only a calm stillness that holds the body in full rest, as the final moments of night move forward unnoticed. Outside, the land begins to take shape again. Not suddenly. Not clearly. But slowly, as if the world is remembering itself after being hidden for a long time. Fields that were once fully lost in darkness now appear as soft, vague forms. Trees stand as quiet silhouettes, no longer completely absorbed by night. The horizon is brighter now. The gray has grown stronger, more defined. It stretches across the edge of the world and rises slightly upward, beginning to touch more of the sky above. The stars are now very few. Most have already faded completely. A handful remain, dim and distant, their presence weakened by the growing light that is still soft but steadily returning. The night is not gone. But it is no longer whole. It feels like something that is ending without ever breaking. Inside the home, nothing stirs. The fire rests at its lowest point. The air is calm and still, shaped by long hours of silence. There is no movement except the faintest suggestion of settling wood in the hearth. Sleep remains complete. Undisturbed. Fully steady. Outside, the sky continues its quiet transformation. The gray along the horizon is now clearly present. It is no longer uncertain or faint. It holds its own space, separating the earth from the remaining darkness above. The upper sky still carries night, but it is retreating. Not quickly. Not forcefully. Just steadily, in a way that feels natural and unhurried. Inside, the home remains unchanged. The fire is quiet. The room is still. Sleep continues. And the world outside moves forward in its slow, steady rhythm, carrying everything gently toward the point where night will finally soften completely into morning. There is still no sharp moment of change. Only this gradual unfolding. This quiet easing. And in that soft space between darkness and light, the world waits without resistance, ready for the first full return of day to begin again, as it always does, in the calm and unbroken cycle of life before electricity. The night is now only a thin presence, stretched gently across the world like something slowly dissolving. It is still there, but it no longer feels complete. It feels light, almost fragile, as if it could fade at any moment without noise or effort. Inside the home, the fire is at its quietest point. The embers remain, but they are barely visible now. A faint warmth lingers in the hearth, but even that feels distant, like a memory of what once burned through the night. The room is still and dark. There is no movement, no sound, nothing to break the deep calm that has settled over the space. Everything rests in silence. Sleep continues without interruption. It is steady, full, and deep. There is no awareness of the outside world, no sense that anything is changing beyond the walls. Only rest, complete and undisturbed. Outside, the land is slowly returning. Not all at once. Not clearly. But in gradual layers that become more visible with each passing moment. The fields, once hidden completely, now appear as soft shapes against the sky. Trees are no longer lost in darkness. They stand as quiet forms, gently separating from the fading night around them. The horizon is now brighter. The gray has grown wider and stronger, lifting upward in a slow spread that begins to take more of the sky into its presence. It is still soft, still calm, but unmistakably present. The stars are nearly gone. Only a few remain, faint and distant, their light weakened by the steady return of morning. Each one seems to hold on briefly before disappearing into the growing brightness. The night is not fully gone. But it is no longer in control. It is becoming something lighter, something that cannot hold its shape for much longer. Inside the home, nothing changes. The fire remains at rest. The air is still. Sleep continues in its deepest form, without awareness or interruption. Outside, the transformation becomes clearer. The horizon is now distinctly divided, darker above, lighter below. This contrast slowly defines the boundary where night is ending and morning is beginning. It is not a sudden line. It is a gradual meeting of two states, blending softly into each other without resistance. Inside, the home remains unchanged. There is no movement. No sound. Only rest. The fire is quiet. The room is dark. And sleep continues. But beyond the walls, the world is already shifting forward. The night is thinning. The morning is forming. And the slow, steady rhythm of life before electricity continues its endless cycle, carrying everything gently toward the return of light, where another day will begin just as softly as the last one ended. The night is now at its final edge, where it feels almost weightless. It is still present, but only just. Like a soft covering that is beginning to lift without being pulled, without being forced. It simply loosens, little by little, as the world beneath it grows ready for light again. Inside the home, the fire is no longer a fire in any full sense. Only embers remain, resting quietly beneath ash. Their glow is so faint now that it feels more like a memory than a source of light. There is warmth, but it is subtle, barely reaching beyond the hearth. The room is almost completely dark. Shapes exist only as soft impressions. Walls, objects, and corners are not seen clearly, but understood through familiarity. The space feels calm, unchanged, and deeply still. Sleep continues. Deep and uninterrupted. There is no awareness of anything outside this quiet rest. No sense of time passing, no sense of change approaching. Only steady, complete stillness. Outside, the land begins to reappear in gentle stages. Not sharply. Not suddenly. But in slow, patient layers. Fields that were once lost in darkness now hold faint definition. Trees are no longer only shadows, they begin to show structure, separating themselves from the sky behind them. The horizon is now clearly brighter than the rest of the sky. The gray has expanded further upward, soft but steady. It is no longer just a boundary line. It has become a wide, calm space where night and morning meet. The stars are almost entirely gone. Only a few remain, and even those are faint, barely holding their presence against the growing light. One by one, they fade without sound. The night is still here. But it is no longer strong. It feels like it is quietly stepping away. Inside the home, nothing moves. The fire rests in its final state. The air is still and cool, shaped by long hours of silence and rest. There is no sound beyond the faintest suggestion of wind outside. Sleep remains full and steady. Undisturbed. Complete. Outside, the sky continues to shift. The gray at the horizon is now more structured, more defined. It stretches upward in a soft gradient, showing the earliest organization of morning light. It is still not day. But it is no longer night in its deepest form. It is something in between. A transition that cannot be rushed. Inside, the home remains unchanged. The fire is quiet. The room is dark. Sleep continues. And beyond the walls, the world moves forward in its slow, steady rhythm, carrying everything gently through the final moments of night, toward the quiet arrival of morning. There is still no clear moment of change. Only this gradual unfolding. This soft release of darkness. And in that space between night and day, everything waits calmly, as it always has, for the light to return once again. The night is now barely holding on. It is no longer deep, no longer full. It is thin and fading, like something slowly dissolving into the air without sound or effort. The world is no longer fully inside it, but already leaning toward what comes next. Inside the home, the fire has nearly disappeared in form. Only a faint glow remains beneath the ash. It is not really light anymore, but a suggestion of warmth that continues to exist even as everything else grows still and cool. The room is quiet. Completely still. No movement, no sound, no change. Sleep continues in its deepest state, carrying the body through the final moments of night without interruption or awareness of the outside world. Outside, the land is slowly returning into view. Not all at once. Not clearly. But gently, in stages that grow slightly more visible with each passing moment. The fields are no longer completely hidden. They are now soft shapes, barely separated from the ground around them. Trees stand as quiet forms, their outlines no longer swallowed entirely by darkness. The horizon is brighter now. The gray has become wide and steady, stretching across the edge of the world and rising upward in a calm, gradual movement. It no longer feels like a distant change. It feels present, established, and ongoing. The stars are almost completely gone. Only a trace remains, faint and uncertain, fading into the growing light that has not yet become morning but is no longer night. The night is still here. But it is weak now. It feels like something that is finishing its final breath. Inside the home, nothing stirs. The fire remains at its lowest point, resting without flame or movement. The air is still and cool, shaped by long hours of silence. There is no sound except the faintest presence of wind outside, moving gently across the land. Sleep remains unbroken. Deep. Steady. Complete. Outside, the sky continues its slow transformation. The gray along the horizon is now clearly defined, forming a soft boundary between the earth and the remaining darkness above. It is no longer uncertain. It is stable, and quietly expanding. The upper sky still holds traces of night, but they are retreating. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just steadily, as if giving way without resistance. Inside, the home remains unchanged. The fire is quiet. The room is still. Sleep continues. And the world outside moves forward in its calm and steady rhythm, carrying everything gently toward the final release of night and the full arrival of morning. There is no single moment when it happens. Only this slow unfolding. This quiet transition. And in that soft space between darkness and light, everything remains still, waiting for the day to finally begin again. The night is now at its most delicate state, as if it can no longer fully hold its shape. It is still present, but only as a thin layer over the world. It no longer feels heavy or deep. It feels light, almost transparent, as though morning is already passing through it. Inside the home, the fire is nearly gone. Only a faint remnant of embers remains beneath the ash. There is no visible flame now. Just a quiet warmth that lingers in the hearth, holding on without movement or change. The room is still. Completely still. Shaped by darkness that is no longer absolute. Sleep continues. Deep and steady, without interruption. There is no awareness of time or place, no sense of the world outside. Only rest, full and complete, holding the body gently through the final stretch of night. Outside, the land is now clearly beginning to return. Not sharply. Not suddenly. But in soft, continuous stages. Fields that were once fully hidden are now visible as quiet, resting shapes. Trees are no longer only outlines. They begin to show depth, slowly separating from the sky behind them. The horizon is brighter than before. The gray has become broader, more open, and more structured. It rises upward in a gentle gradient, slowly replacing the last remnants of night. The stars are almost entirely gone now. Only the faintest traces remain, and even those are fading into the expanding light. One by one, they disappear without sound, without resistance. The night is still here. But it is no longer strong enough to hold attention. It feels like something finishing, not something continuing. Inside the home, nothing moves. The fire remains in its final resting state. The air is calm and cool, shaped by hours of silence and stillness. There is no sound except the faintest movement of wind outside, passing gently through the world beyond the walls. Sleep remains complete. Undisturbed. Deep. Outside, the sky continues its slow unfolding. The gray along the horizon is now clearly defined, forming a wide, soft boundary where night meets morning. Above it, the remaining darkness is thinning further, becoming lighter with each passing moment. This is no longer the depth of night. It is the beginning of release. Inside, the home remains unchanged. The fire is quiet. The room is still. Sleep continues. And beyond the walls, the world moves forward in its steady rhythm, carrying everything gently through the final, quiet moments before morning fully arrives. There is still no single point where the change completes itself. Only this gradual softening. This slow return. And in that space between what is ending and what is beginning, everything remains calm, waiting for the first full light of day to finally appear once again. The night is now only a passing presence, something that remains but no longer holds the world fully. It feels light, stretched thin across the sky, as if it is slowly being lifted away without force or urgency. There is no sharp ending. Only a gradual fading that continues without interruption. Inside the home, the fire has nearly completed its final rest. The embers are faint now, almost indistinguishable from the ash around them. There is no flame left, only a soft, lingering warmth that stays in the hearth like a memory that refuses to fully disappear. The room is still. Deeply still. Shaped by long hours of quiet, where nothing has moved except time itself. Sleep continues without disturbance. It is steady and complete. There is no awareness of the outside world, no recognition of the shift happening beyond the walls. Only rest, holding everything in a calm and unbroken state. Outside, the land is now gently reappearing. Not all at once. Not in clear form. But in slow layers that grow more distinct with each passing moment. Fields that were once fully hidden now exist as soft, resting shapes. Trees stand more clearly against the sky, their forms no longer swallowed entirely by darkness. The horizon is now firmly brightened. The gray has widened and risen further, becoming a calm and steady band that separates what remains of night from what is becoming morning. The stars are almost entirely gone. Only the faintest remnants remain, and even those are fading quietly into the growing light. There is no struggle in their disappearance. They simply dissolve into the changing sky. The night is still present. But it no longer feels complete. It feels like something in its final release. Inside the home, nothing stirs. The fire remains in its last stage of rest. The air is cool and still, shaped by long hours of silence. There is no sound beyond the faint presence of wind outside, moving gently across the land without changing anything. Sleep remains deep. Unbroken. Fully steady. Outside, the sky continues its slow transformation. The gray along the horizon is now clearly established, forming a soft, wide boundary where night ends and morning begins. Above it, the remaining darkness is thinning further, becoming lighter and less defined. This is no longer the depth of night. It is the space just before morning. A quiet threshold that holds both states at once. Inside, the home remains unchanged. The fire is quiet. The room is still. Sleep continues. And beyond the walls, the world moves forward in its steady rhythm, carrying everything gently through the final moments of darkness, toward the return of light. There is still no single moment of arrival. Only this gradual unfolding. This slow, inevitable softening. And in that quiet space between night and day, everything waits calmly, as it always has, for morning to finally complete its return once again. The night is now only a very thin layer across the world. It is still there, but it feels distant, almost like it is no longer fully part of the present moment. The sky carries it gently, without weight, as if it is slowly being set aside rather than actively ending. Inside the home, the fire has reached its quietest possible state. There is no flame anymore. Only embers remain, dim and nearly still beneath a soft layer of ash. The warmth is faint now, barely noticeable unless one is close to the hearth. Even then, it feels more like a memory of warmth than warmth itself. The room is dark. Not sharply dark, but softly so, shaped by long hours of night that are now beginning to loosen their hold. Sleep continues. Deep. Steady. Unbroken. There is no awareness of the shifting world outside. No sense of change. Only rest, holding everything in a calm and quiet state. Outside, the land is becoming clearer with each passing moment. Not suddenly. Not fully. But in slow, steady layers. Fields that were once only shadow now hold soft definition. Trees stand with more clarity, their forms gently separating from the sky behind them. The horizon is now distinctly brighter. The gray has become wide and stable, stretching across the edge of the world and rising upward in a smooth gradient. It no longer feels like uncertainty. It feels like arrival is approaching, even if it has not yet fully happened. The stars are almost entirely gone. Only faint traces remain, and even those are fading into the expanding light. Their presence is no longer strong enough to define the sky. They are simply dissolving quietly into morning. The night is still here. But it is no longer complete. It feels like something that is almost finished, but not yet fully gone. Inside the home, nothing moves. The fire remains in its final resting form. The air is still and cool, shaped by hours of silence and sleep. There is no sound except the faintest movement of wind outside, passing gently through the land. Sleep remains complete. Undisturbed. Deep. Outside, the sky continues its slow transformation. The gray along the horizon is now firm and well defined, forming a soft boundary where night gives way to morning. Above it, the remaining darkness continues to thin, becoming lighter and more open. This is the final stage before day. Not yet light. Not yet fully morning. But no longer night in its deepest form. Inside, the home remains unchanged. The fire is quiet. The room is still. Sleep continues. And beyond the walls, the world moves forward in its steady rhythm, carrying everything gently through the final, quiet moments of darkness. There is no sudden shift. No clear breaking point. Only a slow, continuous unfolding. And in that space between what is ending and what is beginning, everything remains calm, waiting for the first full light of morning to finally complete the cycle once again. The night is now almost completely gone, though it still lingers in the highest parts of the sky. It no longer feels like something holding the world. It feels more like something being gently withdrawn, as if the land is slowly being uncovered after a long and quiet covering. Inside the home, the fire has finished its long passage through the night. There are no flames, no flickers, no movement of light. Only embers remain, very faint now, resting beneath ash that has cooled with time. The warmth is still there, but it is quiet, almost indistinct, like a distant echo of what once filled the room. The space inside is still and calm. Shapes are barely visible, softened by the last traces of darkness. Nothing moves. Nothing changes. Everything remains in quiet rest. Sleep continues. Deep and steady. It carries on without interruption, without awareness of the world beyond the walls. There is only stillness, complete and unbroken. Outside, the land is now clearly emerging. Not suddenly, not sharply, but in soft, gradual clarity. Fields are visible now as resting forms. Trees stand more clearly against the sky, no longer fully lost in darkness. The world is slowly returning to definition. The horizon is bright. The gray has become wide and steady, forming a calm band that stretches across the edge of the world. It rises gently upward, marking the place where night is giving way to morning. The stars are almost entirely gone. Only the faintest presence remains, and even that is fading now into the growing light. One by one, they disappear quietly, without sound or resistance. The night is still present. But it is no longer in control. It feels like something that is finishing its final release. Inside the home, nothing stirs. The fire remains in its final resting state. The air is cool and still, shaped by long hours of silence. There is no sound except the faintest movement of wind outside, moving gently across the land. Sleep remains deep, undisturbed, complete. Outside, the sky continues its final shift. The gray along the horizon is now strong and clear, forming a wide, soft boundary between what remains of night and what is becoming morning. Above it, the remaining darkness is thinning further, losing depth with each passing moment. This is the final threshold. Not yet day. Not yet full light. But no longer night in its deepest form. Inside, the home remains unchanged. The fire is quiet. The room is still. Sleep continues. And beyond the walls, the world moves forward in its steady rhythm, carrying everything gently through the last quiet breath of darkness. There is no single moment where night ends. Only this slow dissolving. This calm unfolding. And in that quiet space, everything waits, as morning slowly, gently, inevitably begins to arrive once again. The night is now at its softest limit, where it feels less like darkness and more like absence. It is still present, but only in the highest, most distant parts of the sky. Near the land itself, it has already begun to loosen completely, giving way to a quiet, growing light that has not yet become full morning. Inside the home, the fire has completed its final stage. There is no flame at all now. Only the smallest remnants of embers remain, resting quietly beneath ash that has cooled through the long hours of night. The warmth is faint, almost indistinguishable, but it still lingers in the hearth like something that refuses to fully leave. The room is still and dim. Not fully dark anymore, but not yet light. A soft in-between space where shapes are beginning to suggest themselves again, though nothing is clearly defined. Sleep continues. Deep. Steady. Unbroken. There is no awareness of time, no awareness of the world outside. Only rest, full and complete, holding everything in quiet balance. Outside, the land is now clearly returning to form. Fields are visible with soft clarity. Trees stand with gentle definition. The world is no longer hidden. It is slowly reappearing, as if it is being drawn back into existence by the light itself. The horizon is bright and steady. The gray band has widened and risen, forming a calm, continuous presence where night once held the edge of the world. It is no longer uncertain. It is established and growing. The stars are almost entirely gone now. Only the faintest memory of them remains, and even that is fading into the expanding light. The sky is no longer defined by darkness. It is defined by transition. The night is still here. But it has reached its final form. It is no longer holding anything. It is simply dissolving. Inside the home, nothing moves. The fire remains at rest. The air is cool and still, shaped by long hours of silence. There is no sound except the very faint movement of wind outside, passing gently through the waking world. Sleep remains complete. Undisturbed. Deep. Outside, the sky continues its final transformation. The gray along the horizon is now fully formed, a wide and steady presence that separates what remains of night from what is becoming morning. Above it, the darkness has thinned almost entirely, replaced by a soft, growing light. This is no longer the end of night. It is the beginning of day. Though still quiet, still gentle, still unspoken. Inside, the home remains unchanged. The fire is silent. The room is still. Sleep continues. And beyond the walls, the world moves forward in its slow, steady rhythm, carrying everything gently into the first full presence of morning light. There is no moment of arrival that can be clearly marked. Only this final easing. This soft completion. And in that space between darkness and light, the cycle quietly turns once again, bringing the world gently into a new day, just as it always has, in the calm rhythm of life before electricity. The night is now almost completely dissolved, leaving only a faint trace of itself in the higher, quieter parts of the sky. It is no longer something that feels present in the same way. It is more like a memory still fading, still stretching thin, as the world beneath it continues to grow lighter without hurry or interruption. Inside the home, the fire has fully settled into silence. There is no flame remaining. No glow that reaches outward. Only the last remnants of embers rest beneath cooled ash, holding on to a warmth so soft it is almost not felt at all. The room is no longer fully dark. It is still dim, still quiet, but a faint suggestion of shape begins to return. Walls, objects, and corners are slowly becoming distinguishable again, not clearly, but gently, as light begins to gather outside. Sleep continues. Deep. Steady. Unbroken. There is no awareness of change, no sense of transition. Only rest, complete and undisturbed, carrying the body through the final, quiet moment between night and morning. Outside, the land is now clearly returning. Fields are visible as calm, resting spaces. Trees stand with soft definition. The world is no longer hidden. It is gently reappearing, as if it has been waiting beneath the night all along. The horizon is bright and stable. The gray has become a wide, continuous presence, lifting upward in a smooth gradient. It no longer feels like a boundary alone. It feels like a foundation for the coming day. The stars are gone now. Not fading anymore. Not lingering. Simply no longer visible, as the light has grown enough to absorb them completely. The sky is no longer defined by darkness at all. It is defined by change. The night is no longer holding anything. It has fully released its grip. Inside the home, nothing stirs. The fire remains silent. The air is cool and still, shaped by long hours of quiet rest. There is no sound beyond the faintest movement of wind outside, passing gently across the waking world. Sleep remains deep. Undisturbed. Complete. Outside, the sky continues its final, gentle transformation. The gray along the horizon has now softened into the earliest form of morning light. It is not bright yet, not warm yet, but it is steady and present, spreading slowly upward and outward. This is no longer night. And not yet full day. It is the moment in between, where everything quietly turns without being noticed all at once. Inside, the home remains unchanged. The fire is at rest. The room is still. Sleep continues. And beyond the walls, the world moves forward in its slow, steady rhythm, carrying everything gently into the first full breath of morning. There is still no sudden beginning. Only this gradual unfolding. This soft return. And in that quiet space where darkness has ended and light has not yet fully arrived, the world waits calmly, until the day finally begins again, as it always does, in the endless and gentle cycle of life before electricity. The night is now gone in everything except memory. What remains is only the quiet after it, a softness in the air and sky that no longer belongs to darkness or to full daylight. It is the final pause between two states of the world. Inside the home, the fire has fully settled into stillness. No flame remains. No visible glow reaches outward anymore. Only a faint, quiet warmth lingers in the hearth, held beneath ash and cooled wood, as if the fire is resting rather than ending. The room is no longer dark in the same way it was before. A very soft light begins to enter, not strongly, not directly, but gently through the world outside. Shapes inside the home become slightly more readable. Walls, objects, and spaces slowly regain their presence. Sleep continues. Deep. Steady. Unbroken. There is no awareness of the change outside. No recognition that night has passed. Only rest, complete and calm, holding everything in quiet stillness. Outside, the land is now clearly visible in its earliest morning form. Fields lie quiet and open. Trees stand still against a softening sky. The world is no longer hidden. It is simply resting under the first presence of light. The horizon is now clearly bright. The gray has turned softer, more open, and slightly lighter in tone. It spreads upward in a calm gradient, slowly replacing what remains of night above it. The stars are completely gone. Not even faint traces remain. The sky has grown too bright for them to exist within it. Their disappearance is quiet and complete, leaving no mark behind. The night is finished. Not abruptly, but fully. Inside the home, nothing moves. The fire remains silent in its final resting state. The air is cool and still, shaped by long hours of quiet sleep. There is no sound except the faint presence of wind outside, moving gently through the waking world. Sleep remains deep, undisturbed, complete. Outside, the sky continues its gentle transformation. The soft gray at the horizon has now become early morning light. It is still gentle, still calm, but it is no longer uncertain. It is steadily growing, spreading upward and across the sky. This is the first true presence of morning. Not yet full brightness. Not yet the full warmth of day. But clearly no longer night. Inside, the home remains unchanged. The fire is at rest. The room is slowly becoming visible. Sleep continues. And beyond the walls, the world moves forward in its steady rhythm, carrying everything gently into the full arrival of morning, where the day will begin again just as quietly as the night has ended. There is no sudden transition. Only this slow completion. This soft and natural return of light. And in that calm space between ending and beginning, everything continues as it always has, in the endless, peaceful cycle of life before electricity. The night has finally loosened its hold. Not in a sudden way, and not in a way that can be clearly marked, but in the same slow, quiet manner it has always moved until it is no longer fully present at all. What remains is morning. Soft at first. Gentle and uncertain. A pale light spreading across the sky, touching the land without urgency, without noise, without interruption. Inside the home, the fire rests in its last form. Only a faint warmth remains where embers once held a steady glow through the night. There is no flame now. No movement. Only the quiet after all movement has ended. The room is no longer dark. It is slowly filling with early light. Shapes that were once hidden in shadow are now gently returning: walls, furniture, small familiar objects that belong to everyday life. Everything is still, but no longer unseen. Sleep begins to ease. Not suddenly waking, not breaking sharply, but loosening slowly, like the world itself. The deep rest of the night fades gently into awareness, without force, without disturbance. Outside, the land is awake in its own quiet way. Fields lie still under the early sky. Trees stand motionless, not yet touched by the warmth of full day. The air is cool, steady, and clean in the soft beginning of morning. The horizon is bright now. Not harsh. Not strong. just present. A calm spreading of light that replaces what night has left behind without resistance. There are no stars anymore. No darkness holding them in place. Only the sky, open and growing, as if it has always been waiting for this return. And in this quiet moment, life before electricity feels exactly as it always was. Simple. Steady. Unhurried. Defined not by sudden change, but by rhythm, day into night, night into day, each one arriving gently, each one leaving the same way. Inside the home, nothing is rushed. There is no alarm, no sound demanding attention, no brightness forcing the day to begin. Only natural light, slowly filling the space. Only the quiet return of awareness. Only the beginning of another ordinary day. And in that ordinariness, there is a calm that stays. A feeling that nothing is missing. Nothing is broken. Everything is simply continuing, as it always has. The fire will be lit again when it is needed. Work will begin when the body is ready. The day will unfold at its own pace, just as the night did. And so the world moves forward, not loudly, not quickly, but gently, held in the steady rhythm of light and rest, of waking and sleeping, of time passing without hurry. And here, in this quiet morning, the story does not truly end. It simply continues. Softly. Naturally. Endlessly. Just as life did before electricity, and just as it always will.